Hey guys, Dr. Justin Marchegiani here. Today we're going to be talking about the number one reason why you have mold in your house in the summertime. This is very common. We're going to dive into it. We'll talk about simple mold symptoms. How do you know you have mold? And we'll talk about what you can do about it. Keep it pretty simple. Again, mold could be a functional medicine stressor that is on someone or in someone's stress bucket. And it could be many things. Like many people, when they kind of search YouTube, they glom onto one thing. It's got to be this one thing. And just newsflash, having been doing this 15 years, full-time, 5,000 plus patients, most of the time you're going to have a multitude of things. Sometimes it's one or two things, but most of the time it's five or more things going on, and you're trying to line everything up and set the foundation and do things in the order of operations. And really, you know, you have to have a good foundation of everything to lean on. So you got to get the foundation going. And sometimes that's boring and patients don't like that, but it's essential, right? When you build a home, you grade the land, you dig the hole, you pour cement, you get the concrete and the foundation going, then you start framing, then you start doing, the wiring and the plumbing and then drywall, the paint last, right? So there's an order of operations of how you do things. So we gotta focus on that. So first off, how do you know you have mold in your home? Well, first off, in the summer months, once spring and into the summer hits, you're going to start to see higher humidity in people's homes. And so you can go on ChatGPT, say humidity per month in my zip code, and you'll see the humidity. Right, where I'm at, it's going to be pretty dry in the fall and into the early spring, and then it starts to get higher humidity. What's higher humidity? Relative humidity greater than 50%. We want to be less than 50 inside, ideally. And again, if you're like, oh, I got an air conditioner, well, guess what? An air conditioner can only do so much. All right. Once you start getting on days where the humidity is above 70% outside, it'll be able to knock 10% off of that. It'll maybe get it into the 60 or upper 50s, but we want to be below 50. That's where you need a dehumidifier. Dehumidifier is going to help bring that humidity down below 50. Now, so in those summer months, most people are going to find their humidity is above 50 for at least 3 to 5 months out of the year. Some people by the shore, they'll see their humidity. I saw someone who was in a cool area, right? They were in California. They're like, oh, it's 70 degrees all year round. I'm like, yeah, but your humidity is 60 to 70 all year round too. Your temperature's so cool, you just don't realize that it's so humid. So we get a humidity meter from Amazon, put it in your house. You can move it around. It'll tell you your humidity, or if you have like a Nest thermostat, it'll tell you your humidity on there too. And we want to be less than 50. And so basements are the biggest area where humidity is a problem, right? Basements are notoriously 10 to 20% higher in humidity. And it's a problem child because of the fact that most people, if their basements are unfinished, you're not going to have ventilation. You're not going to have dehumidifiers. And so you're going to have that 20% extra humidity because that concrete's pulling in all the moisture from the soil. And it's also usually not ventilated too. That's why basements have that reputation, having that musty kind of odor. It's because of the humidity. And then, of course, the ventilation as well. So first things we do when it comes to a basement, we have a dehumidifier running all the time. At least set it for 40, 45%. I mean, you'll find it's only really running 4 months out of the year, but you set it for 40 to 45%. Typically, I don't like to go to 50 because usually it goes 5% above it and then it tricks on. So if you set it 50, then it goes to 55, then it tricks on, then it goes back down. So if you set it for 45, then it never gets above 50. So at least 45. And then for me, I'll do it continuous output at night because electricity is cheaper at night. Okay, I use the Medea Cube dehumidifier. I'll put links down below. I like it. It's Energy Star. It costs about $1 a day to run it. I'll crush it at night. I'll put it on continuous output at night. It's cheaper to run stuff at night. And then during the day, I'll run it at 45% and low. And that usually keeps my humidity down very low. For my kitchen, I'll wake up. It'll be at 37, 38%. Time I go to bed, it'll be at 45. And then we put it on low again and bring it right back down to the upper 30s. So I do that, makes it a little bit cheaper, costs about $1 a day to run each dehumidifier. I have a Medea Cube on each floor of my home. Plus I have my basement over here. I have a April Air whole house dehumidifier that runs because this is my office too. So I want to have this whole area good. But I have about 1,000 square feet of storage that's not ventilated. And so I put the Medea in that area and I get those things. They hold 4+ gallons, maybe 4.25 gallons. And I dump those things this time of year every single day. So it's 12 gallons every day. The one in there runs constantly, so it's in a drain. The ones upstairs, they get dumped every single day by me. So it's about 12 gallons of water plus my April Air. So about 15 gallons of water a day in the summer months. And again, that's insane because when you add humidity and you add in any dust, right, or allergens, moisture and dust and allergens, it's the accelerator to allow mold and or those allergens to grow and replicate. It's like a petri dish for that stuff to grow. Mold needs 3 things. It needs oxygen. for the most part, which is going to be a given, unless you're like putting a cover on water, right? You may put a cover on water in the fridge, and you may not see it grow mold because you need oxygen, right? But everything in the world that we live in is going to be uncovered for the most part, and so you have oxygen, you have dust or carbohydrate. Carbohydrate can be in the acute form, which is going to be pipe breaks, drywall, hardwood, baseboard, that grows mold, right? That's the acute form, okay? Then you have the chronic slow form. That's the high level of moisture. That's the musty basement smell because of the high level of humidity. And so it's such an easy one to fix. I have patients who have had chronic allergies. We just get the humidity down in the mid 40s. We get good air filtration in. Maybe we fog things. We do essential oil dry fog to kind of get some of the microbes neutralized and knocked down. And guess what? We can see big changes with allergens. Now, how do you know you have mold? So first off, we'll do mold plate testing. We'll see how the mold looks. We'll put plates out. Why are plate testing great? Because if there's mold in the air, it's going to go on the plate. The plate's an agar plate, so it'll feed the mold. We'll be able to culture it out. We'll wait 7 days, and we'll count the spores, and we'll see how many spores are on there. And if we see more than 5 or so spores, that tells us it could be a problem. And we'll send those plates to the lab, and we'll be able to differentiate the mold. Do we have Fusarium? Do we have Penicillium? Do we have Aspergillus? Do we have Stachybotrys? It's the mycotoxin-based molds. Those are the problems. That's going to be your Aspergillus, your Stachybotrys, your Penicillium, your Fusarium. These will be molds that are associated with mold toxins, right? These are the mycotoxins. This is the flatulence or the off-gassing of the mold. And then you have other molds like from the soil, from the decaying leaves on your side yard, from just nature doing its thing, right? Cladosporium, Microsporium, these are normal molds. Now, if you're sensitive though, it could still give you brain fog. It could still make you have chronic congestion. And so it's still good to have those allergens down. Now, here's a little secret. Don't tell anyone. But when we do mold testing, we always compare inside to outside. And I'm telling you, it's not good. If the mold test outside looks as good as inside, then we got a problem, right? Because your inside should be much, much cleaner. I know sometimes parts of the country, people are like, oh, I'm going to put the fan on. It's a wonderful night. I'm like, go to ChatGPT, say, give me an in-depth allergy report from my zip code. And pollen, leaves, and then unless you see a really low allergy score, don't put it on, okay? Just run a fan inside. Do it that way because you got to be careful because you're pulling a whole bunch of allergens from outside in. So if you're sensitive, go on, get an app, get your ChatGPT going to look at an allergy report for your zip code. Make sure things are good before you do that because we see a lot of people do that and they have a lot of allergens and pollens on the inside that could be problematic. So big thing out of the gate, we get the HEPA filtration going. Ideally, I like Austin Airs because they have 15 to 20 pounds of zeolite and activated charcoal carbon inside of the HEPA. So you got this big donut called the HEPA, and then you have inside the donut, instead of where the cream filling would be, you got a whole bunch of zeolite, which is volcanic ash or volcanic minerals, and then you have a whole bunch of activated carbon from, I think it's coconut shells. And as the air rushes through the carbon, through the fulvic minerals, then it goes through the HEPA, and then it goes back out. So the carbon and all those components bind a lot of the toxins, and then it runs through the HEPA. And so those filters last 5 years. They last a lot longer because of the sheer amount of media. You pick up those filters, they're like a big daddy. They're huge. Versus like, the Air Doctor, it's a more thin one. It's still nice. I have Air Doctors. They're still nice. They're still good. I like them. But if you want something that's very robust, just feel the Austin filter versus the Air Doctor one. So if I could pick one, I would invest in the Austin. It's a little more expensive, but the filter doesn't have to be changed but once per 5 years. And the carbon in there is going to filter out, a lot more of the off-gassing. And if you get the Healthmate Plus, it's got a potassium iodide coating in there. So that neutralizes more of the formaldehyde that could come off like the paints or anything that's like the preservatives that are in your like sofas or rugs or those kind of things. So it's good to have that. So basements, higher humidity. Why? Because of where they are at in the ground, less ventilation, pulling from the soil in. If there's not a vapor barrier, it's more likely to pull moisture from the outside in. Number 2, you need a dehumidifier in there set it for 45%. So it always goes on when 45 or higher hits. That way you set it and forget it. Find a drain in there, have it always draining so you're not having to dump it. If you use the Medea Cube, it's wonderful. It's got an app. Set it up for push notifications. When it's full, it pings you. And you kind of know, like this time of year, my Medea is going to be dumping every day. In the spring, it's every 2 to 3 days, right? And then little pro tip, don't tell anyone. You can get a little bit of mold in your dehumidifier bin. So I have diluted white vinegar, and I'll just spray in there 2-3 times a week, and just that keeps the mold levels down in the dehumidifier bin. So we do a little vinegar spray in there, and that really helps a lot. And so you may have mold if you get dizzy, you get lightheaded, you get brain foggy, you have chronic congestion, you have the bags under your eyes. You feel better when you leave your home. When you get out of your home, you feel a lot better. These are good signs that you have mold. Get plate testing done, right? In the summer, this is what the whole video is about. Humidity is higher. There's more moisture in the air, right? So get dehumidifiers going. I'm going to put links to dehumidifiers, mold plate testing. I'll put links to air filters as well. I'll give you guys the whole 9-yard options of what I personally recommend. So if you want more support on that, then that'll be available for you. Now, there are things we can do. We can test urinary mold toxins. We can test colonized mold in the gut. I told you about some of the plate testing we can do at home, either a lab one or just the at-home one where we can at least look at the spores and count them and see how we look. So there's a lot of different options that we have testing-wise. And if you have a lot of mold stored in your body, there's different protocols that we can do. Always deal with the gut first. Get the gut dialed in. That's how your body deals with mold detoxification, is through the liver, gallbladder, right? Hepatobiliary, through the colon, through the intestinal tract out, right? So we got to make sure the gut and digestion is good. And the phase 1, phase 2 cytochrome P450 oxidase pathways, they require B vitamins, antioxidants, and sulfur amino acids. So if we're not digesting protein, we're a vegan vegetarian, and we don't have enough acid or enzymes or bile, we're going to have problems detoxifying. So hope that makes sense. So in summary, summertime, higher humidity, dehumidifier in the basement, get it tested, plate testing, get good quality air filtration, at least HEPA. Think about HEPA with the additional activated carbon via zeolite and activated charcoal. Love that. Next thing, get your dehumidifier running. If you have a full live-in basement, get a April Air whole house dehumidifier and plug it into your HVAC. I would do it for the whole house. The only problem is I just have not enough space. I'd be stacking dehumidifier. And then I like the Medea Cube. It's nice. I only need the dehumidifiers really on 4 months out of the year, really from mid-June to mid-October. And I'm pretty good, and then I'll still keep one in the bathroom too, right? Just because if I keep my dehumidifier on in the bathroom, put it 40%, it's on for 30 to 45 minutes after a shower. And you very rarely have tile scum because it dries the shower out much, much faster. So it's another nice benefit. So mold plate testing, and then we can do different functional medicine things to look at the gut, to look at urinary mycotoxin. We'll challenge that with different amino acids before we test it as well. And then, of course, these particles, whether it's environmental mold or mycotoxin mold, they love hiding up in your sinuses. So you have to address flushing out the sinus cavity to clean that out. I got a whole other video on how to do sinus flushing, right? We'll put a recommended video either here or here where you can look for it at the end. But that'll be helpful because mold loves moist, dark places. And guess what this cavity is right here? Here and here, right? Your maxillary and your frontal sinuses. It's moist and dark. Mold loves that stuff. So hope that makes sense, y'all. A lot of things we can do. I have a lot of experience with it. And I've experienced looking at and testing homes and figuring out ways to get rid of mold in your home. There's a lot of things you can do. Don't get overwhelmed. There's a lot of simple, cheap things you can do out of the gate before you go any deeper. So hope that makes sense. Links down below if you want to reach out to my staff or team to get more functional medicine support. We are here for you, and we support you on the mold side as well. All right, guys, have an awesome day and take care. And I'll put all the recommended products down below.